This episode is brought to you by Audible.com, today's best-selling books read by brilliant artists. Get your free trial, including one free title, at audibletrial.com/LoneStar.
All right, live from Dogleg Brewery in Fort Worth, Texas, it's time for You Can't Brew That on Television. Now, here are your hosts, Brewmeisters Kyle and the Reverend Brian Bono.
Hello, beer lovers, and welcome to a very exciting episode of You Can't Brew That on Television. We are your hosts. I am the Reverend Ryan Bono.
And I am Kyle, Horrible Bosses LaPointe.
And we are here as we are every Monday to help you bridge the gap between beer snob and frat boy. Kyle, a lot of stuff lined up tonight. What are we doing?
Well, one of the first things we're going to talk about is BAC.
BAC is an initialism. What does that stand for?
The initialisticness of it stands for blood alcohol content.
That's what I initially thought.
All right.
I went to that right off the bat.
That's so basically what we're going to be talking about is how you can estimate your blood alcohol content. And we've got a couple options here. So we're also going to be talking about
football.
We're
going to talk about football.
We got to after a weekend like this last weekend.
Especially after a weekend like this, a season like this season, especially football in the state of Oklahoma. And it's also occurred to us that maybe not everybody wants to hear about beer for 30 minutes straight. So we're gonna try to break it up a little bit more for you guys. Try to keep your attention a little bit better. So that's what we're talking about tonight. We're going to talk about football, and that's going to lead into what?
The Bruin Bowl, which is what we're going to be doing on the 1st of January this next year, which is what we started our show on. We're going to brew a beer live on television, internet television, and then we're going to design the recipe here on the show before we get to that. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We've been building it all year. We've been discussing the yeast and the water and all that. Now we built the recipe, and I built the recipe, and Bono was going to critique it during the show.
Yeah. So it's time to unveil it and watch it get slammed by yours truly. So, guys, winter is coming. Believe it or not, even though it really doesn't feel like it outside, winter is on the way. It's fall. Winter's going to be here in a little bit more than a month. And with cold temperatures come warm beers. And specifically beers that are warm from alcohol. So tonight we're looking at a few big boys. We're going to be tasting a few of these big beers. Actually, the next 2 weeks we're going to be doing that. This week, Kyle has brought in a selection from his cellar.
Couple beers that I've got stored up for special occasions. So we're busting two of them out. Yeah.
Like
cellar, i.e. my beer fridge.
Oh, okay.
And then next week, I'm going to dip into my cellar and bring a few of the special selections that I have.
I love it. So what we've got right now, we've actually got two beers, and we were discussing which one we were going to have first. What we've got is Harvest Town Old Dub, which is actually aged on whiskey casks, so really looking forward to that.
Okay.
It's actually aged on the Highland Park, which is one of the higher dollar whiskeys, Scotch whiskeys, excuse me. And then I've got a Harvest Ale, J.W. Lee's, and that's their barley wine. And this is a 2007, so it's a few years old.
And full disclosure here, this is my all-time favorite beer.
Yeah, he loves the J.W. Lee's.
I cannot get enough of the J.W. Lee's. I think it's wonderful stuff.
So we've got a choice now, and I'm going to say we open the J.W. Lee's first because the whiskey keg.
I never object to going right for the J.W. Lee's.
Because the whiskey keg, could add some stuff to it that may change our palate. I brought some better glasses out for this.
While Kyle's pouring out this beer, we mentioned these are big beers. These are strong beers. They have a lot of alcohol in them.
And this beer is 11.5% alcohol by volume.
And how many ounces
there are? There are 9.3 fluid ounces in here.
And we bring up these particular measurements because Rich is going to be keeping track of a very important number for us tonight, and that is our estimated blood alcohol content.
Yeah, so give me that again. It was 11.5 ounces?
11.5% alcohol.
Oh, geez.
And this is 9.3 ounces of fluid.
So excuse me while I gush about this beer for a minute because, again, this is my all-time favorite beer. You smell this beer, and right off the bat, you just get this rich, deep malt complexity that's called for in the style. I think the style guideline was written for J.W. Lee's Harvest Ale.
That's 1 out of 3 right there, by the way.
Nice.
We're talking about college basketball. I would be Shaquille O'Neal numbers.
If we were talking about baseball, you would be
North Carolina. Okay. So anyway, I'm batting well. So I was just throwing my bottle caps over into the trash can here, but we've got a smell that you're talking about when you drink this beer that just boom right into your face, right? I mean, you before you even get the glass all the way to your nose, you're smelling caramel and alcohol, and then
there's some dried fruit in there, a little bit of maybe like a raisin or a currant.
Yeah, I would say raisin on this one.
Yeah.
Currently I haven't had that before, so it's just great. I got a little more yeast than you because I poured the last out in mine. Didn't realize how little was left in the glass. But
and let's talk really quick about the yeast that's going to be coming out of this. This is a bottle conditioned beer. There's different ways to carbonate your beer, and we've talked about this in the past. But I'm just going to give a really quick refresher. You can either carbonate your beer by forcing carbon dioxide into the beer. You basically just get your keg and you put carbon dioxide into it until it's ingrained into the beer itself.
It absorbs into the liquid.
Or you can carbonate naturally, which is what the folks at J.W. Lee's choose to do, where they actually will mix their beer with sugar and probably yeast, because they have to age this so long that it's dead.
They probably put more yeast on top of it.
So they have to actually mix the finished beer with sugar to induce a second carbonation in the bottle, and that second carbonation will produce fermentation. The second fermentation will produce alcohol, and it will produce carbon dioxide, and will actually carbonate from within.
And this, it's really interesting when you have that stuff going on. You get a bunch of extra flavors from a beer that's this big, and from a beer that it's naturally carbonated. You'll tend to see a naturally carbonated older beer will have smaller bubbles. It's not always right, but a lot of times you can tell how long the beer has been aged by the small diminutive bubbles, and this one's got quite a bit of those. And it's really, really tasty. This one actually, oxidation is something we've talked about before, that you're allowed to have that. And in a barley wine, it's a good thing. In a lot of other beers, it's not. But in this one, there is a little bit of oxidation.
Yeah, this beer definitely is oxidated. And as you were saying when you poured it, this beer was made in 2007.
2007.
So we are drinking a 4-year-old beer.
4-year-old beer.
And as it ages, it is going to collect a little bit of oxygen. Oxygen is going to seep into the barrels. It's going to get into the beer, and it's going to give it... What would you go... This isn't really cardboardy.
No, it's starting to get that...
It's almost...
You start to get a little bit of cardboard flavor. And cardboard flavor, before it gets to cardboard, is kind of like almost nutty. Is really where it goes.
Yeah.
So it takes that caramel away from being caramel and the dark fruit away from being dark fruit and makes them more nutty. But if I put this on for another year, maybe 2 years, it would taste cardboardy and it wouldn't be very good. So this one's being opened at its prime, which is awesome. I'm happy about that.
So in a Budweiser, say, even a little bit of that cardboardness, that nutty kind of flavor is going to be, it's going to completely ruin the beer. But in this, it's actually kind of acceptable.
Sure. This is really good. So that's enough waxing poetic about
I really do have to be shut up about this beer.
He loves the barley wine.
I love this specific beer. Let's talk about the BAC calculator.
All right. So
as you guys are moving into those beers now, we're tracking you, Bono, at 0.0213. Blood alcohol content. Kyle's at
so I'm a quarter of the way to the legal limit.
Yeah, including these beers and the pre-show libations.
I started drinking about 5:40. So the blood alcohol content actually takes into account how long you've been drinking. So yes, I am now close to my way to being halfway to the legal limit before I should not be driving. Bono, he's only 25% of the way there. So that's all right, because he does have to drive tonight.
I've got a ways to catch up, but I'll make it.
You'll get there.
Yeah, so I believe in myself.
It's a short cab fare if you can't make it,
buddy. One place you can go to check this out, to do just like a quick calculator, just do some random searches, right? And I found this University of Oklahoma, where we both attended.
That's a good place.
Their police department is cognizant enough of the drinking problem in Norman for them to put up a calculator on their website.
www.ou.edu/OUPD/BAC.html.
There it is. And this, you can actually put in the content, or put in how many beers you've had, put in what type or style of beer, and it goes down. You can have like whiskey sour, you can have like all of these fuzzy navels or whatever you want on there, and then the bottom of it has the time that you've been drinking, because alcohol in the bloodstream dissipates over the course of time. So, these are all rough numbers and rough calculations, but my favorite was going through that link. I was able to find that you could actually go to Sorry, I pulled this away here. Thought I had that up anymore, but I don't. But you can have that. There are multiple styles. You can have light beer, or it says low alcohol beer, which is talking about alcohol, 3.8% by volume, Oklahoma beer. Or you can have a light beer, which is just a typical light beer. And if you get above that, it calls them all Canadian beers, which I found that really funny. So you can get either a 5% Canadian beer, a 7% Canadian beer, or a 10% Canadian beer.
Are you making this up?
No, I'm totally not. That is exactly what's on there. You can have a 10% Canadian beer, which I've never had a 10% Canadian beer. And technically I have, because
Le Fin du Monde.
Le Fin du Monde is in Canada, so... but
and Don de Dieu. Wow, that is really pathetic.
So anyway, it's a little... it's a formula that you can go ahead and put this stuff in. You can search for the formula and find the Widmark, I believe, is the name of the formula, and find this stuff out. And we've gone ahead and built something to where we can track it during the show, so you can watch and maybe correspond how we're discussing and how many times we mess up our words by our alcohol.
As you do every week.
You see, we're actually dropping as we go. This is an active tracker.
Yes. So Richard is making sure to pay attention to...
Bono's falling down a little bit.
Right?
I'm starting to wane a little bit.
If we don't
far too drunk to be doing a web show.
Right.
So let's look at some of the different factors that affect your blood alcohol content.
Okay.
The formula involves weight.
Weight.
It involves time.
Weight.
What are we waiting for?
Did anybody say weight?
It involves time.
It involves time.
Right.
Weight.
And weight.
And weight.
So after that, it involves hours that you've been drinking.
I'm glad we entertain ourselves.
This was only funny to us, by the way. If you guys didn't have fun for that...
Once again, that's .0197 for Bono.
So, you take these calculations...
The higher that BAC goes, the dumber our jokes will become. So, just you wait.
When I get drunk, I get funnier and better and more attractive.
So we've got the amount that you weigh. The
not your mass.
Time that you've been drinking.
Right.
And the amount of alcohol that you've actually consumed in ounces. So, first, how's our alcohol in ounces going to be calculated by this formula?
So basically with this formula, it's pretty simple. You take the amount of ounces, because this is an Americanized formula. So my first beer of the night was 11.2 ounces, because it was not an American beer. So it was a German beer, 11.2 ounces.
It wasn't Canadian?
No, it was. Well, technically it was, because it was 5% alcohol.
Okay. So
it was 5.5% alcohol, and you'd take that and you'd multiply 11.2 times 0.055, which is 5.5% divided by 100. And so you would get a 0.61, I believe is what it is, and that is your amount of alcohol that you have consumed in ounces, basically, is what that is.
So then you take that and you plug it into the formula that also involves how much you weigh, and it also involves the time. Now, why is the time that you've been drinking important? Like, what's that going to change?
Your body will metabolize the sugars that is in your bloodstream. It's just, diabetics have to worry about that on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, because they monitor their glucose content of their sugar, of their veins, and what's going on through there, and the insulin reaction to it. So, yeah, it's basically that. So you're monitoring how much blood alcohol is in there. Well, your body is going to filter that alcohol just like it's filtering sugar, and eventually it's going to get it out of your alcohol. Or out of your alcohol. It's going to get it out of your bloodstream.
Alcohol is blood alcohol.
Woo! No more blood in your alcohol.
How is that number going down? Oh, wait, it's because I haven't finished this.
You really need to get moving.
So, yeah, it's going to move that alcohol out of your bloodstream, and you're going to filter it out through your pee, most likely through your liver, so that's where it's going to go.
Or sweat.
Yeah, it could go out through sweat. And I tell you,
if you run a marathon while you're drinking.
From experience, you do not want to be totally just flat out falling over drunk and then go play 3 hours of hockey pickup.
Really?
You just don't want to do it. I'm just telling you, write that down. 3 hours.
3 hours.
This is another formula. Times being stone cold drunk equals being hungover. So it's really bad. It takes the entire night of being able to sober up and just concentrates it over the course of 3 hours.
So we, the simple drinkers of the world, want to know how to calculate this. Like, if I go to the Flying Saucer tonight after we're done here,
sure,
and I want to know what my blood alcohol content is without having a laptop on me, what can I do?
I believe there are some applications.
There are some applications
from Droid or Android and on iPod.
This is the year 2011. The answer to every question beginning with "How do I know?" ends in your phone.
And from the iPhone commercials, if you are running and you have like a little thing hanging from your ear, you can just talk to the other thing that's hanging from the ear, and it will tell you. You can say, "What is my blood alcohol content?" And it should tell you exactly what that is. I mean, that's according to commercials, so it can't be untrue.
There are a few apps out there for both iPhone and Android, and we're going to have the honky review them. And
all of them.
We'd like him to review all of them, get back to us, and I'm also going to check with him because he's our tech guy.
Right.
I'm wondering if he knows how to write apps.
He may be able to write a better one than the one that's out there.
I'm betting that with his tech expertise and our beer expertise, we could write a killer BAC app.
I think that would be something that would be a lot of fun to do.
Thank you. I'm used to getting applauded when I'm just like walking down the street, but never actually here in the studio. So
that also comes from your phone.
Oh, nice. Well, I think we've about beat this to death.
Yeah, we're getting close to the next beer.
Yeah, I personally look forward to hearing about what Honky has to say about the iPhone apps and the Android apps. But while we're waiting for that, we would like to take a moment to tell you about our friends over at Audible.com. Audible.com is the best source of audiobooks on the internet today. These are not your grandpa's books on tape. Audible has thousands of high-quality recordings performed by talented authors and voice actors.
The titles include some of the best-selling fiction and nonfiction from today, as well as the rich library of classic books. Just use your MP3 player /smartphone /iPod, iPad, all of those things we discussed earlier, and because there's no CDs or tapes to lug around, you get a full, unabridged version from Audible.
For our viewers, Audible has a free 14-day trial of their Gold membership, including one free book of your choice. Go to our special URL at audibletrial.com/Lone Star to sign up tonight.
The Gold membership is a great way to start with one book a month from a library of more than 85,000 titles. And for the free book is yours to keep at www.audibletrial.com/Lone Star.
And I don't know about you, Kyle, but I go on a lot of road trips. And when I'm going to be in the car for 8, 9, 10 hours at a shot, like the music, it just gets old.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I cannot listen to music for 10 hours straight.
And for me,
so I always bring audiobooks.
And for me, the screaming of the child in the back seat and the badgering of the wife in the passenger seat, just, eventually I'd like to listen to something other than that. So I listen to a book.
So what you're saying is that Audible.com might keep you from hanging yourself.
That's possible.
Yeah, I've got an awesome commute to work now. It's like an hour each way if traffic's being good. So I'm totally going to go out and I think Stephen King's got that new alternate history book that he just came out with about if they were able to prevent Kennedy from getting shot.
I really want to check that one out. That one sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Well, shoot, if you got an hour commute every day, and that's an hour total commute, or are you talking an hour each way?
Each way, dude. Yeah.
See, so you can read a book basically.
You can read
in the course
Stephen
of 2
King
weeks.
book in like a year.
Yeah, I mean, some of these things are like 20 hours, 60 hours. They've got big, epic novels.
No, I think technically you can read a Stephen King novel in as long as it takes him to write it.
I think that's about right. Oh wow, I was a bad host tonight.
All right.
I left my phone.
Well,
on.
that was Tommy who's calling you and he's saying,
starting soon.
"Wait, I have to do an app review." He was a little upset, I think, by that.
Yeah, sorry about that, everyone.
Yeah,
so, as long as we're distracted, let's talk some football. While you're pouring up our last beer, while you're finishing the dregs, there is quite a bit of yeast sediment here in the bottom of these.
It's not in mine anymore, so I got rid of that one.
Oh, I love this beer.
You want to be
drinking this beer again
give a
next
quick
week,
rinse,
by the way.
And we'll go into this topic that we were talking about. We love college football, so we'll probably only we'll skimp and not really do the pro football so much tonight. But the college football was amazing last week. There were several just fantastic games, several that have national championship implications. Who's going to make it to the national championship game? And one of those was Boise State and our local Fort Worth team, TCU.
The local heroes came through in a big way and beat those dirty old Broncos from Idaho.
It was fantastic. It was a late second, very gutsy call in that game. Because it was amazing. They were winning by...
When Gary Patterson is playing against Chris Peterson, gutsy calls are the only kind.
That's right. You've got to be... because pound for pound, Peterson's the best coach in college football.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without question.
The guy wins every week. Heard a lot of people talk about Oklahoma like, okay, yeah, well, you guys choke all the time. But you know what? We don't choke all the time. We manage to choke at least once a year, but we don't choke all the time, right? I mean, because we win some huge games and blow people out, and people are like, oh, well, that's that's just Oklahoma being good, but then we manage to also lose. By the way, Richard, 8% alcohol by volume.
Nice.
This is 11.2 fluid ounces. Split between the two of them.
So that brings me to my topic of discussion. We're going to have a really quick college football discussion here. Brandon Weeden, is he or is he not the most important, not the best, the most important player in Oklahoma State football history?
Yes. Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
I think he is as well.
I mean, Kendall Hunter was a great player, but...
let's look without question the best college football player in Oklahoma State history.
Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders.
But... they won, 9 or 10 games that season. Didn't really win anything. They might have won. Did they win the Big 8? I don't think they even won the Big 8 that year.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
There's a little more oxidation in this beer, by the way.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
A little bit more oxidation.
This beer's a little bit thinner.
It's thinner, I think, because of that oxidation. Mm-hmm. So basically the beer is continuing to ferment when it oxidizes because there's bacteria that's getting in there that's able to start eating some of the sugars that the yeast couldn't. So, yeah, you got a little oxidation in there, but... I'd say this one's probably 6 months past its prime, maybe a year. Yeah, would have been better before. So, but it's really tasty, but it's past its prime.
I actually think you talk faster when you get drunk.
Oh, that's very true.
Yeah,
and I also talk louder. Wow, I spent a lot of time in my life trying to tone down the volume of my voice. And when I start drinking, I lose that control, that self-control of toning the volume of my voice. But Skype will definitely bring that down, so you guys won't experience that pain.
Technology.
But Bono his left ear is kind of ringing right now. I'm pretty sure it is.
Well,
he shook his head yes.
Too. Kyle, as you're finishing this one, you'll be pushing 0.42, 0.43.
I'm getting close. Shouldn't be driving soon.
What am I up to, Rich?
024 or 025.
Dadgummit. I have a long way to go.
So, by the way, on that calculator, I found it really funny. I put in 8 Oklahoma beers in 1 hour, and you still were not past the legal limit.
Me?
No, me.
You?
I was not past the legal limit. With 8 beers, I was at 0.07.
How many Canadian beers in an hour would it take?
I don't know. Well, at the 10%, 3 of them, I was at 0.14. So, I mean, it was literally double.
Nice.
Yeah, so the Canadian beers were a kick in the pants.
So, Brandon Weeden steps into Stillwater.
Yeah.
Right around the time that the program is on the verge of becoming really big. Like, they've had a few big seasons. You know, they've won some nice games.
They can't beat Oklahoma.
Can't beat Oklahoma yet.
Well, not in his era, but they have in the past.
Yeah, and
2001 and 2002.
They have done it, and but Mike Gundy has not.
No.
And I personally believe that Bob Stoops owns Mike Gundy.
But because Bob Stoops is a man.
But let's face it, there was a while there where we all said that Bob Stoops owned Mac Brown.
That's true.
And at some point that equalizes, yeah.
And, you know, it was almost the opposite over there with Les Miles. I mean, we can say that Les Miles
owned Bob Stoops.
And he has 3 times. So, you know, it may be that he does. But, man, I would love to have another crack at that man. I would love to have it this year. I don't think it's going to happen. And I don't know if I would love it without Broyles and without Whaley. But, hey, you know, if we make the national championship game, I'm going to the Sugar Bowl. All
right.
You going to the Sugar Bowl?
No.
You want to drive down there
I'm gonna,
and dodge beer bottles with me after
I'm gonna have tickets though. I'll sell them to you. I'll.
But you won't go?
No. I'll send you the link to the eBay auction.
Cute.
And I won't charge you shipping though, so that's cool.
Okay, and I just did cuss. I normally try not to do that.
Yeah,
but
this is a swear-free environment.
I was a little upset.
Friendly.
As Kyle approaches 0.05, the gloves come off.
Starts to lose control.
You're my problem. That's my problem.
But yeah, let's talk about this beer.
This beer drinks a lot faster.
Let's talk about Brew.
This is almost 3.5% less alcohol, so it feels light compared to what we were just drinking.
Well, and also it's a lighter body because the JW Lee's you don't drink that beer, you chew it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that beer is thick. It's like syrupy almost.
Yes, and it should be.
Yeah, and it should be. That's what the style is all about.
Because you're talking about a lot of times. That beer finishes with more sugar in the beer than a beer that we will make at home starts with. So before the yeast even have a chance to start acting on our beers, that beer is finished. The yeast have done their thing, and that's what's left. So it's amazing how much sugar there is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big thing. And then this one, not so much. And I wouldn't necessarily call this a thin beer.
Oh, this is very tasty.
Certainly compared to what we just had. So
I really like the way that the Scotch plays into this. It's
not overplayed. A lot of times you get like a Scotch or whiskey aged beer, and it's overplayed. That's all you can taste and all you can smell is the Scotch or the whiskey. But here it complements the flavors rather than dominating them.
I totally agree, and I think that's a big thing with an old ale rather than a barley wine.
Yeah.
The barley wine that they make here with the Lagavulin for the JW.
All you get is the Lagavulin, and it's delicious.
Huge smoky Lagavulin.
It's delicious, but that's all you get. You really the flavors don't play well together like they do in this.
Yeah, I agree. They kind of play well together because it's big, but the bigger wins, right?
Right.
And so this one's got a much nicer feel, and they use their special 30 reserve, which I'm not expensive enough of a Scotch drinker to have tried that. But I imagine at $150 a bottle or whatever their 30-year reserve probably costs, I imagine that's a pretty damn good whiskey. But I've got plenty of scotches that I keep around. We're just not cold enough for scotches.
I've got some 30-year-old port. Maybe I'll bring next week. I'll have to get my wife to drive me.
Oh man, I would drink that, by the way. But we need to get into real conversation.
Yeah, let's talk about the Brewing
our
Bowl.
Brewing Bowl,
because we've been working on this recipe with you, the viewing audience, the brewing audience.
Whoa,
I like that.
Yeah,
we've been working on this with you, the brewing audience, for the last few months. Now, how did it take this long to come up with that? Write that down, brewing audience. So we've been working on the recipe with you. And we've sort of been discussing our mentality and how we're going to construct the recipe. We talked about the history of an alt beer, and now we've got a recipe and we're ready to look at it. So Kyle has actually put this recipe together.
And I'm rough.
I'm about to see it for the first time. So
sure,
you're going to get my totally candid opinion of it.
Because what's happening is Bono basically did quite a bit of research on the style, and he bought a book, and he's pretty much read the entire book on alt beer. And so I built this recipe more off the cuff on my research and the things that I've done. Because during the show, often when Bono's talking, I'm not listening, so I didn't hear anything he said or retain any of that information. So my formula is based on total other information than that. So basically, I went pretty simple, and my ideas on that were, Pils and Munich malt are considered very prevalent in this recipe, yeah. So I just split the gap with them, pretty much did 50-50. I used some Carafa, which is basically dehusked, burnt grains that just raise color. They don't add a whole lot of flavor or a lot of roast character, because you don't really want to add that to this beer. But I used that enough to get the color up to where your color's supposed to be. And then I used all spalt hops. And I used most of it at the bittering and just a little bit at the flavor.
Where are our IBUs on this?
IBUs are down here on this calculation. So we're at about 43, 44 IBUs.
Yeah, so we're right in there. We're a little bit high, but that's fine.
I'd rather be higher in the style because with the first wort hop that I've got in there, it's going to be artificially a little higher. It's going to
be more of a gentle.
So it's going to taste bigger, it's going to taste not as big, but it's going to have more IBUs, it's going to be a little more gentle flavor. So I didn't actually put them in at 60 minutes in the boil.
And we do have it written down that we're doing a decoction mash. And let's talk. We talked a little bit back when we did our mash segment about how we're going to soak the grains. Remember, we have to soak the grains in hot water to extract sugars out of them.
Sure.
And this particular beer, it requires a body and just like a thickness to it that is really easier to obtain using that double decoction mash.
Well, and actually, you need a malt backbone, but you need it to be crisp. So that's the big thing, and that's why you would do a decoction mash. Decoction mash will get better attenuation from your yeast. You'll get more of the sugars coming out, but the sugars that are left will have more caramelized flavor because you're actually boiling some of the grains before they're done sucking all the sugar out. So those grains are going to denature the enzymes, and they're going to have some of those caramels that just never come out.
My old man says that OSU was 6-5, 10-2, and 10-2 with Barry Sanders. Dad, can you see if they won any Big 8 titles during that time?
That's still not very good. I mean, would you consider
if you have the best player in the history of the game and all you can do is 10-2,
and you look at Quentin Griffin, will be well known throughout the years as being one of the best running backs Oklahoma's ever had. You know why? Because we won a title with Quentin Griffin, and he had that little 17-yard, 18-yard scamper where he just kind of walked in and tripoded up and then high-stepped into the end zone for a national championship victory against Florida State. Amazing.
Yeah, I think Mark Bergani over at Half-Ass Sportscast is probably chomping at the bit to wonder why you're hijacking his topic. But
well, he really needs to start wondering why we know more about his topic than he does.
Ooh.
Bono knows a lot about other dudes' topics.
I really do.
So, the option here, normally what we've done with decoction mashes have been on bigger beers. So this is a smaller beer in general. It's going to be a 1050 gravity start. So basically that 1050 gravity, you're going to be talking like a 4.5%, 5% alcohol beer, like what you'd buy in the store. So in this idea, I wouldn't go with a double decoction, which means you would actually boil twice the mash that's coming from your mash tun. You only boil it once. The double decoction, if you look at that, will just kick the alcohol percentage way up.
It's going to kick the alcohol percentage up, and it's also going to kick your color up a bit, because what you're doing when you take, you're going to take grist and you're going to take wort out of the mash and you're going to boil it, and as you're boiling it, you're caramelizing those sugars and you're beefing up the color content of your beer. And remember that we said that alt beer is a pretty dark beer. Certainly by German standards.
By German lager standards, for sure, it's dark. And we're only talking. It only gets to like maybe 10 or 11 SRMs when it starts. That's pretty dark for a light beer.
Your staple beers in Germany are generally lighter. They're generally pale lagers, kind of like the staple beers here in America. Your Coors, your Buds, those are all based on your staple beers in Germany. I do see that we're using Spalter hops all the way through.
We're using Spalt.
I was really looking forward to using Hallertau. Is there any? Why did we go with Spalter instead of Hallertau?
Because Spalt is is pretty much the one that everybody says is for this style. Okay. So,
that's a good reason to use it.
You know, I mean, Hallertau is acceptable along with all the other continental styles there. But
we're not going for acceptable here. We're going for pristine.
Yeah, we want to make the best beer possible.
Spalter is the best hop for this style, and Spalter is what we're going to use.
So I'd say we use Spalt. We can add some in the boil. We can do some Hallertau if you want. But from what I've read, from my quick little researches over the years on alt, and we can double check with somebody who knows more than us, because that's what we do on. You can't put that on television.
It's like we used to remind you.
We ask the professionals, because we are not those.
Yeah, we used to remind you this a lot more often. I think we fail to do that these days. We don't know everything.
Right.
In fact, we know maybe a quarter to a tenth of everything. But we know the guys who do know everything. And a tenth. And we're not scared to ask them anything. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about those.
Rich, this is a 6.5% alcohol beer.
And we're splitting a 12-ounce bottle.
12-ounce bottle.
Gotcha.
So let's talk a little bit about this beer, because it doesn't really fit with the big beer mentality tonight, but it is a fantastic brew.
It's a palate cleanser on our way to what I figure we'll wrap the night up with, which is a Spot and Optimator.
We can have that while we're doing our
recap.
Yeah, we're doing
our show plug for next week.
Yeah, our post-show stuff.
So, basically, though, the Brew and Bold, do you like that recipe? Are you good with 50% Munich and Pilsner?
I think that's definitely going to be the way to go.
And Spalt hops. We can use Hallertau. Hallertau is generally more what you get in a Hellesbach, which I had earlier. I should have not drank the last one before you got here.
If Spalter's what's expected in an alt, then I think that's what we should use.
Yeah.
I don't think it's expected for a reason. So
yeah, and I figure, why mess around?
Yeah.
And we can make a Hellesbach one of these days, too. We got plenty of Hallertau ready for that. So, and I had amazing Hallertau over at James of Lands the other day. Him and Nick made a Hallertau, and Mark Wedge was over there, and they were all drinking some beers and having a good time, and we were talking and discussing some of the things, and everybody was drinking that beer, and everybody went back to it, including Mark Wedge, who's one of those very picky beer drinkers, so he's only going to go back to the best beer. And it was, it's very neat, and we were all discussing it later, how great this was, and we got Blue Bonnet coming up, so people are going to be putting in their beers for competition. Yeah. But
you'll hear us talk ad nauseum about Blue Bonnet here in the new season.
But it's 4 months away from Blue Bonnet, and that beer is prime for drinking now. So that means that beer 4 months from now,
not so much,
may not be very good. And that's part of the problem with beer. Beer goes bad fast. You got to drink it fast.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about this IPA. So we're drinking a Ranger IPA from New Belgium.
Yep.
And this is a big, IPA suggests it's going to be big and hoppy. Lot of what, citrusy hops in here?
Oh, yeah, it's American beer, American IPA.
Yeah, a lot of citrusy hops.
Bunch of citrusy hops, but it's got a big caramel backbone, so it does fit with what we've been drinking.
Yeah.
Sometimes they use more of a bready backbone, but this one's more caramel. It's almost all caramel. So, they back it up. It's basically like a miniature one of what we've been drinking, miniature old ale, with a buttload of hops, with a whole bunch of that bitterness coming into there. And hops add that bitterness. Sometimes it's piney, sometimes it's citrus, sometimes it's earthy, sometimes it's spicy. It's a whole bunch of different types of flavors, but hops add bitterness. So if you ever drink a beer and you go, oh, that's too bitter, I like it sweeter, you want to stay away from the things that say pale ale, IPA,
Definitely.
Anything like that. You want to go more towards the old ales and the barley wines and the German beers in general will have.
Yeah, German beers don't. I think Alt is about as hoppy as it gets.
Alt is pretty much their hoppy beer.
Yeah.
And at 45 IBUs for a German beer is huge.
Yeah, and that's about as many IBUs go into like the last hop edition for an American IPA.
Yeah, it's quite possible, but a little exaggerated. But yeah.
So next week is season finale, right? Is that time already?
Yeah, wrapping up for the season.
We said the Monday before Thanksgiving. Next Thursday's Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, this is our second to last show for the season.
Yeah, so be sure to tune in next week for our season finale. Hopefully we'll have some cool stuff for you.
Yeah, we may plan that.
And stick around. We're going to joke around, goof off after the show like we always do. And while you're watching us goof off, we'd like you to keep in mind, just in case it escapes you, that we are not professionals.
So please try this at home.
Agitation, frustration, the memorization of the things I'm gonna do to you. This magical.
Look at Robert Griffin III. Right now, I think that is one of the best players in college football. Robert Griffin III.